Finally tonight, the debate over big-time college sports and whether students should get paid.
A federal judge will decide this summer if college athletes can be paid.
The huge amount of money being made off college sports has led some to question whether student athletes should be paid.
When they see the amount of money the NCAA through March Madness, they say, hey, part of that is mine. I'm doing all the hard work here.
In the year 2011, the combined salaries of the highest paid college football coaches added up to $53.4 million, while the combined salaries of 13,000 Division I college football players amounted to $0. This is one of the many examples of the difference in pay across the NCAA athletics. The issue at hand is the fact that college athletes are the ones putting in the work for their schools and their team, but are not reaping the benefits that come with receiving salaries. Now, who makes the decision that says athletes can get paid? The NCAA makes the choice that says athletes can get paid. However, they are allowed to use the images of athletes to make a profit. The Intercollegiate Athletic Association, the association before the NCAA, set the rule that emphasized on education and upheld amateurism. This meant that student athletes were to be focused primarily on academics and not sports. This has created such a controversy between athletes from universities and the NCAA. Many student athletes have tried to bring the issue of getting paid to the attention of the executives of that association.
Another huge issue, of course, lately is whether or not the athletes themselves get to capture any of this money. The court ruled last year that, yes, in fact, they were entitled to some of it. But where do you stand on this issue?
It's certainly a challenging one. When you look at the economics of and I will say the business of college sports, and you acknowledge the dollars, the billions of dollars that we're talking about here, and then you look at the lifestyles that these amateur athletes come from, and lifestyles that they're able to afford during these years, the reality is that the economics are imbalanced. In my opinion, I feel very strongly that we have to look at a system where you hear stories about players who actually are having a hard time feeding themselves while in school, and at the same time, their coach is making $5 to $10 million a year between on and off court, endorsement money, what have you.
So, how are student athletes hindered financially by not receiving actual salaries and are not given the opportunity to seek employment during their athletic career? One of the biggest concerns that arises with student athletes not being paid salaries are the financial responsibilities that they have to fulfill. Oftentimes, these athletes have bills that aren't covered by their scholarships, such as phone bills and card payments. For a lot of student athletes, there is not an option to receive financial help from outside resources like their parents. In fact, many of these athletes would not be able to afford college were it not for their athletic scholarships. If they decide to attend a school that is outside of their hometown, the expense of going back home might not be a realistic option. Although student athletes are getting stipends, sometimes it is barely enough to cover living expenses. On top of that, not being paid for the time they put in hinders them by not giving them financial freedom that other college students that have for the opportunity to get jobs. In most cases, these student athletes are not allowed to get jobs outside of their sport, so they don't have money to cover their living expenses. What are possible effects of student athletes getting paid salaries? Many college sports programs already use up money from the university's budget, creating conflict between opposing sides. Some college sports programs do not generate the same amount of money as the top schools. This creates the issue of how much money each student athlete should make. It would not be fair for an athlete from the most successful school to be earning the same amount of money off that from the worst performing team. Even though both teams would make different amounts of money, the same amount of money would probably be needed for the expenses of the student athletes. This raises questions that leads up to any possible policy change to the NCAA.
It's easy for me to say I think the players should get paid. Yes, I think the players should get paid. How they get paid, I think that's something to be figured out. But I think it will only get figured out if the NCAA want to figure it out. If they don't want to figure it out, then it's not going to get figured out. Then you're going to continue having these issues, having these problems.
So, what policy can be changed to make sure that everyone is treated fairly? Some possible changes that can be made are separating salaries given by the NCAA and scholarships. By separating their designations, it removes the issue of athletes having to pay taxes on their scholarships and only on their salaries. To keep away from contract competition, there can be strict rules to put in play. Another policy change would be allowed for student athletes to work all year round. This would be the simplest and least costly solution to this issue. This change did not involve any money being spent, as it allows students to work for their own money. The athletes would simply find a job and work as many hours as they would like in order for them to cover their expenditures as college students. Although no solution has been offered by the NCAA to fix this issue, many student athletes continue to bring awareness to fix the situation once and for all.